What's going on, guys? Picsoleated here, back at it again with another video. We're looking at the fiery Thunder Spectras by Puma. These insanely wild looking shoes, you can see I'm putting these through the runs already. No breaks out here, waterproofing test in session. These are the Puma Thunder Spectras, as I mentioned before. What a wild and fitting name for this shoe. It's a mouthful, but it describes the shoe perfectly. The shoe released globally on April 28, 2018 and has been selling out almost immediately since. If I'm being honest, I had absolutely no idea this was going to happen and that these would be so difficult to get. Thankfully, I was able to cop a pair from a local boutique closest to me, and they had only 7 pairs. 7 pairs, that's not even a full size run, that's not even double digits. What? I don't even know if they were just limited or if most stores didn't order too many thinking they wouldn't sell. Whatever the case is, the projections were wildly off on this sneaker. Now, before we get started, feel free to like or subscribe. As a growing channel, it helps me out a lot and allows me to create more content for you guys. And hit that notification bell to stay up to date with my videos. And while you're doing that, follow me on Instagram. I take fire sneaker pics at Picsoleated. That's at Picsoleated. I also finally set up a Patreon. It's not full-fledged yet and I'm going to continue working on it, but as you know, this channel is entirely fully funded and there are a lot of limitations to self-funding a channel that requires a lot of investment, so hopefully some of you can help me and I can up my quality and content game for you with some support. All the details are on the Patreon and I'll update it more frequently. If any of you have experience with Patreon and have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. With that out of the way, let's move on. Now, I've said this before, but even though my first sneaker purchases as a kid were J's, what kept me interested in the sneaker game were classic sneakers now labeled as dad shoes, such as New Balances and Asics. So this dad shoe trend is right down my alley, and Puma's entry into the market is happily welcomed. Now, you can see the shoe is made of a cornucopia of materials, and we'll get into that shortly. Let's clear up the one big thing everyone's going to be saying first. No, Puma isn't owned by Joe LaPuma from Sneaker Shopping on Complex. Kidding, that's not what people are saying, and for the record, he really isn't affiliated with the brand. But no, this is not a copycat of the damn Balenciaga SS sneaker. Yes, it follows in line with the bulky dad shoe trend, but the sneaker itself is inspired by Puma's own collaboration with Alexander McQueen, one that released several years ago. You can even see the similar hits on each shoe. The midsole tooling looks almost exactly the same, especially the lower portion, but more exaggerated and chunkier. Somewhat similar panels on the upper, but you get the point. So Puma pretty much made a roided up version of its own shoe. This is pretty much the Hulk version of Puma's previous tech runner with Alexander McQueen. Onto the materials, there are plenty on the upper of this shoe, kind of what we've come to expect from the bulky dad shoe movement. The main design concept is to slap as many materials and designs together to create a chunky dad shoe. The upper is mostly black with what Puma calls a premium mesh upper. It creates the tongue as well. I will give them that, the mesh is softer than most mesh and is very breathable. I actually don't feel these shoes when I'm wearing them, sort of a refreshing feeling because most shoes you wear, you can usually tell where the shortcomings of the fit are as soon as you wear them. With the Pumas, the fit was seamless. It felt a little narrow at first, but we'll get more in depth shortly. Looking at the other materials on the upper, we have the soft black leather that makes the toe box. What would be the Puma logo on the lateral side, it reinforces the upper eyelets and we see it form the top of the tongue. We have nice thick black rope laces. We then have this yellow polyester or nylon feeling material that's padded underneath in this neon yellow tone on the medial and lateral sides of the shoe under the black leather. There's a teal nubuck panel forming the rest of the heel with this rubber heel reinforcement overlaying it. The rubber heel reinforcement is semi-translucent gray and has an asphalt-like texture to it. There's a red nubuck panel outlining the bottom of the tongue and lace cage, and I must say these small panels do feel like decent quality. Nothing to complain about, but you gotta remember at this price point, this is probably the best you'll get. There are light blue tongue pull tabs to help you put the shoe on more easily with the signature Puma logo on them. A black nylon pull tab with Puma text debossed in rubber on it. The inner heel of the shoe has this random pad of cushioning embedded in it, which I think is genius because I've heard of other chunky dad shoes where the heel slips off the footbed when a person is walking because obviously the midsole is so chunky there isn't much flexion as your typical shoe. The other shoe brands that released a chunky dad shoe didn't implement a solution to that, but Puma went the extra step to include this raised padded cushion and I think that's amazing and very nice of them to do. Finally, onto the nitty gritty, we have the midsole, and I gotta say there's nothing revolutionary here. Aside from the looks, it's a very chunky and aggressive looking midsole. I'll be honest, I was a little underwhelmed with the way these sneakers looked in hand, but as soon as I put them on and saw the midsole in action, I was thoroughly impressed. It is a molded TPU midsole, so pretty much the same material you can expect to see on classic runners with a few light blue pieces of what I assume are hardened plastic to add a little bit of stability. However, because the midsole is so chunky you can't feel the compression with every step, it's more pronounced because of that thick midsole. And finally, the black rubber outsole. Truly my least favorite part of the shoe. There's no definition to it, nothing outstanding. You can tell this is where they put the least thought. It's flat, boring, and has Puma text on it. Understandably so, not a single person is going to be looking at your outsole for the most part. Oh right, and the insole. The insole is removable, seems like a standard insole. It is purple underneath with this crosshatch design running across it. It's not glued down, so I'm pretty sure the crosshatch design is just to give it a little bit more grip so it doesn't slide around on the bottom of the shoe. What I've noticed about this particular pair of shoes is that they've gotten praise for actually keeping the Puma branding to a minimum, which might seem counterintuitive to what the brand wants, but I've noticed this to be a common practice with brands on some of their sneakers, and sometimes it serves the design of the shoe really well, because most sneaker companies don't really have an aesthetic logo, as sad as that sounds. But what Puma did, and they've done this on their older Alexander McQueen collabs, is they placed a black form strip here on the lateral side that is the exact shape of the Puma logo without the details. So you know it's a Puma shoe in a subtle way, and it actually looks good. At least I think so. As for sizing, I went with my true size. They fit a little narrow at first, but broke in really quickly. I think going your true to size is perfect. I'm a wide foot, #duckfeet gang, and I'm still doing okay with this. If you're known to have wider feet than your regular wide footer, like you have those really wide feet, yes, there's levels to this, then you may potentially have to go half a size up, but for me, true to size fits great. I don't feel any discomfort anywhere, probably the most seamless wearing experience I've had with any shoe. When it comes to comfort, there's nothing revolutionary about this shoe. The midsole is chunky, and that adds a touch of weight to the shoe. It's noticeable, but nothing you can't handle unless you haven't eaten for 10 days and have no energy. But by then you'd probably be worried about more important things than shoes. I've said this earlier, but because the midsole is so chunky, you can actually feel some compression of the Imeva midsole or the injection molded EVA midsole when you walk or jump in these. Although it's a chunky midsole, the biggest redeeming factor about this shoe is the mesh upper. Seriously, it's so soft and breathable and is the reason I don't feel any discomfort when I'm wearing this shoe, which also makes this the easiest chunky dad shoe to wear in the summer during these hot days. And with the sneaker priced at $120 US retail and $150 Canadian retail, it is hands down the best option for your money. The quality is there, the style and sporty look is there, the comfort is adequate, no real complaints aside from the weight, but that comes with the territory. If you haven't been keeping up with the sneaker trends of 2018, although I'm sure most of you have, the chunky tech dad shoe trend is a thing now, and it's a really favorable thing for me. It's been a while since I've seen something so polarizing in the sneaker world, and for that very reason I have to welcome it. There are things in this world that are objectively bad and objectively good, like old designer shoes with no cushioning and derivative boring designs and a $1,000 price tag. That's objectively bad. A fair priced, extremely comfortable sneaker with bleeding edge new cushioning tech, that's good. The modern tech dad shoe is at a midpoint where there is no defined rule to determine whether it's good or bad. It's mostly an evolution of style and taste. We've come to a point where every company is just trying to come out with the wildest, most eye-catching design in a re-energized competitive sneaker landscape. We saw the advent of knitted shoes in the last few years, the best cushioning tech ever created in sneaker tech, and of course the legendary collaborations we've seen in the last 2 years alone with sneaker companies and big household brands, as well as high fashion brands. The industry has never been so competitive if you ask me. I personally think Puma hit it out of the park with this shoe. It follows the chunky dad shoe aesthetic perfectly. It's got that sporty athletic look mixed with that thick midsole, and I couldn't really call out any glaring flaws aside from the boring outsole, but most people don't even see that. The price point is extraordinary. You're not getting a standard dad shoe that's quite as loud as this at a reasonable price of $120 US and $150 Canadian dollars. And of course the comfort is adequate, which if you've worn any other chunky dad shoe as of late, this is probably better than most of those. Please hit that like or sub if you took anything from this video. What do you think of this shoe? Are you on the dad shoe wave, or do you think it's despicable? Let me know in the comments below. I'd really like to hear it. Catch you later. Picsoleated is the god of thunder.